Yo, what is going on, everybody? So before the video starts, I just want to let you know that 85% of you guys watching are not subscribed. I put a lot of effort into my videos, so please make sure you guys are clicking that subscribe and like button to help support me. Enjoy the video. One thing to keep in mind is that when I was looking at all the pros, keybinds, and sensitivities, everyone uses different kinds of settings. Sensitivities and keybinds are based on preference, so feel free to change these settings up a bit to what feels most comfortable to you. I'm just giving suggestions on what I think the best sensitivity and keybinds are. So heading on to the first setting, we have sprint. I highly recommend turning sprint by default on, as it is one less button you have to press. If you're still using this button, please turn it off. So for crouch, I use left control, and it is a pretty easy button for me to press since my pinky is already resting on shift and all I have to do is move it down a little bit. For my reload, I have R, and for reload, it's something that you usually have to the middle right side of your keyboard because your pointer finger usually clicks it. So for use, I use E, and it's a really easy button to press since it's right next to where my pointer finger rests. For my pickaxe, I use T. This is just another button. I use my pointer finger to press. Not too many people use T, but most of the time they use mouse buttons. I can't use my mouse buttons because those are set for building, which are a lot more important. More to that in just a second. Moving on to weapon slots, these are very important. So for my first weapon slot, I use middle mouse button. This is when you click down on your scroll wheel. I use this for my AR, and I really like having it on my mouse because you are almost always using your AR. For my second weapon slot, I have it on mouse wheel down. This is going to be for my shotgun, and I highly recommend using scroll wheel. I really do like this bind as you are always pulling out your shotgun, and this allows you to pull it out quickly and easily. For my third weapon slot, I use caps lock. I use my pinky to press this button, and the reason I use caps lock is because it's fairly easy to press with your pinky since it usually rests on shift, and all you have to do is move your finger a little up. I usually put my SMG, sniper, or even heals in this weapon slot. So for my fourth weapon slot, I use X. This button for me is a little harder to press, which is why I have it on my fourth slot. Lastly, for my fifth weapon slot, I use Z. I use my middle or ring finger to press it. Heading over to the most important part, which is my building settings. So of course I'm going to keep crouch as control just like I had it before. So for my wall, I use Q. The most common building binds I see is Q, F, and E. For my floor, I use my mouse button. I have two side mouse buttons, and for my floor, I use the mouse button that is farthest away from me. I highly recommend that you guys go ahead and get a mouse with side buttons if you do not already have one. I have the glorious Model D-, which I got for $50, so they are not too expensive. For my stair, I also use a mouse button, but I use the one that is closest to me. One thing that I wanted to point out is that actually since my floor and stair are ordered this way, I can easily do 90s because all I have to do is press Q and then slide my finger across the two mouse buttons, and my floor and stair place instantly at almost the exact same time. For my cone, I have it on left shift, which is very easy for me to press since my pinky rests on that. I'm pretty sure that Mongrel also uses left shift for his cone. For my trap, I use V, but that is not too important because the only time I press it is when I am using a bouncer. To repair my builds, I use H, but that is not too important, and to rotate them, I use Y, but I almost never rotate my builds. To change my building material, I use 2, which is very easy for me to press because that is right above my W. I use my middle finger to press that button. Now to my editing, which is very important. I use F to edit, but the main buttons I see used for editing is F, E, and sometimes G. However, I think that F is the most used edit bind, so that is probably going to be your go-to bind. Now of course I use scroll wheel reset, and for those of you guys that did not know, you need to have your second edit bind as your scroll wheel for it to work. I use scroll wheel up because as you guys saw earlier in the video, I use scroll wheel down for my second slot, which is my shotgun. Also, you need to have your reset building bind as your scroll wheel for scroll wheel reset to work properly. This way you will have scroll wheel reset, and all you have to do when looking at a build is flick up on your scroll wheel and the building will reset automatically. This is extremely overpowered and unfair for controller players. So here's how it looks. Most of you guys probably already know about this, but for those of you that don't, I definitely recommend trying it out. The reset happens so quickly and it is so easy to do. The reset just happens automatically. If you guys are currently not using it, I highly recommend using it, and it will make your resetting so much faster. For my ping, I just use G, so if I see someone off in the distance, I just press G with my pointer finger and it makes a place marker. The rest of the binds are really just your preference, and they do not really matter too much. I would just focus on editing, building, and swap binds. If I were you guys, I would start by selecting my building binds, then my editing binds, and lastly, my slot binds. For the last two binds, I have M, which is the default for map, and for my inventory, I use tab. I think that would be the best button you could change from all my binds because tab is a pretty easy button to press, so it would be perfect for inventory or a building bind. I will just quickly scroll through all these binds because they are not too important. I've seen a lot of people with more binds on their numbers, but for someone who has smaller hands like me, it might not be the most comfortable to continue pressing those numbers, especially since they're the farthest away from you. So that is the reason that all of my keybinds are right next to each other. However, I know that a lot of people will not have that problem. So if you're comfortable reaching that far, you can maybe change some of the keybinds to those numbers. Generally, I would try and keep all the binds as close as you can to where your fingers rest. Of course, all my binds won't work well, so feel free to change a couple. If you still are trying to figure out what binds you can use, maybe check out some pros. Just know that people play with different keyboard positions, so if someone is playing with a keyboard that is completely tilted, and you like to play with a keyboard that is almost completely horizontal, then I probably wouldn't use those players' binds. Just remember that people have gotten good with all kinds of binds, so you don't have to copy all of my keybinds or another pro's keybinds. So moving on to my sensitivity. I used 14.3 X and Y on 800 DPI. I know this can be very high for some of you guys, but this is because I'm a wrist player. I move my arm a little bit, but not too much. I tried playing on a lower sensitivity, but I felt more comfortable playing with my wrist and on a high sensitivity. If you want to be more focused on your aim, then I think you should definitely go on a lower sensitivity because there's no doubt that will improve your aim. However, if you want to play on a higher sensitivity, this helps with building and editing, but mostly building. Most of you guys will probably not have too much space for your mouse on your desk, so more than likely you will become a wrist player. I have a lot of space on my desk, but I still prefer to play on a higher sensitivity because that is what made me most comfortable. If you guys are playing on 800 DPI, I would try not to go over 15% X and Y. If you're on 400 DPI, I would try not to go over 30% X and Y. Finally, if you're on 1600 DPI, try not to go over 7.5 X and Y. My targeting sensitivity is 35.3%, and this is when you aim in with an assault rifle, for example. My scope sensitivity is also 35.3%, and this is when you have a scoped weapon, like a sniper rifle. With all that being said, that is going to wrap up this video. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to drop a like and sub if you did not already do that. Also, don't forget to use code VERMAX in the item shop. This is the best way you could support me. I also have my other socials such as TikTok, so make sure to go check that down below. I hope that you all enjoyed this video and have an amazing day. Alright guys, I will see you in the next video.